The scissors flew past Maya Thompson's face, missing her by inches before embedding themselves in the mood board behind her. The entire studio froze, models mid-pose, photographers with cameras half-raised, makeup artists with brushes suspended in air, as Julian Beaumont, fashion director of Maison Eclat, stood in the center of it all, his blue suit immaculate despite the violence of his gesture. "That's what I think of your pathetic suggestions," he spat, his voice carrying across the silent space. Maya stood perfectly still, her red dress a splash of defiance against the white walls, feeling the eyes of 40 people on her. 3 years she'd endured this. 3 years of being his assistant, his target, his favorite victim. But today, something was different. Today, she'd brought more than just coffee and scheduling updates. Today, she'd brought the truth that would bring his empire crashing down. If you're watching this unfold on Acts of Depth, you know we believe in stories that reveal the power hidden in unexpected places. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what Maya Thompson does next will redefine everything you thought you knew about standing up to power. The morning had started like any other in the fashion world's most prestigious studio. Maya arrived at 5 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else, to prepare Julian's workspace exactly as he demanded, temperature at 68 degrees, his special imported coffee at precisely 147 degrees Fahrenheit, the day's schedules printed on ivory paper he insisted made him more creative. She moved through these rituals with practiced efficiency, her mind elsewhere, on the folder hidden in her bag that contained 3 years of evidence. Julian Beaumont was fashion royalty, the kind of man whose name opened doors and whose tantrums were dismissed as artistic temperament. At 34, he'd already won every major fashion award, dressed celebrities for the Met Gala, and built Maison Eclat into a global powerhouse. The fashion magazines called him a visionary. The models called him demanding but brilliant. Maya called him something else entirely, but only in the safety of her own thoughts. She'd started as an intern fresh from FIT, full of dreams about changing fashion, about bringing new voices and perspectives to an industry that desperately needed them. Her portfolio had caught someone's attention, not Julian's, never Julian's, and she'd been hired as his third assistant. The first 2 had quit within her first month. She should have seen the warning signs then, but she was 21 and hungry and believed that talent and hard work would eventually win out over prejudice. The humiliations had started small. Comments about her hair, too ethnic for client meetings. Suggestions that she tone down her appearance, speak differently, be less herself. Then came the tasks designed to break her, fetching his dry cleaning from 5 different locations across the city, organizing his closet by thread count, being called at 3 a.m. because he'd had an inspiration and needed her to take dictation. She'd endured it all, telling herself it was temporary, that she was learning, that one day she'd have her own studio. But the incident 6 months ago had changed everything. She'd presented an idea during a creative meeting, a collection inspired by African textile traditions reimagined through modern silhouettes. Julian had laughed, actually laughed, before taking her sketches and presenting them as his own the next week. When she'd confronted him privately, he'd looked at her with those cold blue eyes and said, "Who do you think they'll believe? The fashion director of Maison Eclat, or his diversity hire assistant?" That night, Maya had started recording. Every meeting, every interaction, every moment of his carefully crafted cruelty. She'd also started digging, connecting with his former assistants, building a network of voices that had been silenced by NDAs and fear. What she'd discovered went beyond personal humiliation, financial fraud, stolen designs, and a pattern of discrimination that would make headlines around the world. Now, standing in the studio with scissors still quivering in the mood board behind her, Maya felt the weight of all those recordings in her bag. The show was in 6 hours. Buyers from every major department store were coming. The press would be there. Julian's entire spring collection, the one that would cement his status as the industry's golden boy, was ready to launch. And hidden in the lining of every single garment was a QR code she'd sewn there during her late nights alone in the studio, each one linking to a website that would go live in exactly 6 hours and 15 minutes. "Pick them up," Julian commanded, pointing at the scissors. His voice had that dangerous quiet quality that everyone in the studio recognized. When Julian Beaumont spoke softly, someone's career was about to end. Maya didn't move. Around them, the studio held its collective breath. She could see Dimitri, the head photographer, gripping his camera like a lifeline. Sarah from makeup had gone pale beneath her own carefully applied foundation. Even the models, usually above the fray of studio drama, watched with naked fascination. I said, Julian stepped closer, his cologne, a custom blend that cost more than Maya's monthly rent, filling the space between them. Pick them up. Or clear out your desk. No. The word dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. Maya had said it quietly, but in the hushed studio, it might as well have been a shout. She saw the shock ripple across Julian's face. In 3 years, she'd never directly refused him anything. Excuse me. His voice climbed higher, the French accent he'd cultivated, despite being from Newark, becoming more pronounced. Did you just? I said no, Julian. Maya straightened her shoulders, the red dress she'd chosen that morning, deliberately, purposefully, catching the studio lights. I'm not picking up the scissors you threw at my head. I'm not fetching your coffee. I'm not reorganizing your mood boards or lying to your investors or covering for your cocaine binges or pretending I don't know where you really get your designs. The studio erupted in whispers. Julian's face went from pale to crimson, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. Everyone out, he barked. Now. Nobody moved. I said get out. He spun around, addressing the frozen crowd. The show is in 6 hours. Anyone who isn't gone in 30 seconds is fired. Still, nobody moved. Maya felt something shift in the air, a change in the current that had always flowed in Julian's direction. She reached into her bag, pulling out her phone with steady hands. They should stay, she said, her voice carrying clearly. They should all stay and hear this. Especially you, Mrs. Chen. She nodded toward the elegant woman in the corner, Vivian Chen, the biggest buyer from Bergdorf Goodman, who'd flown in specifically for the preview. And you, Marcus. The fashion journalist from Vogue straightened, his recorder already out. And definitely you, Dimitri, since Julian stole your concept for the entire spring line. Security. Julian screamed, but the 2 guards by the door looked uncertain. Maya had always been kind to them, remembered their names, asked about their families. They didn't move. 3 years ago, Maya began, her voice steady despite the trembling in her chest, I started here full of hope. I believed fashion could be art, could be change, could be beauty. I believed that talent mattered more than connections, that hard work mattered more than skin color, that creativity mattered more than cruelty. She touched her phone screen, and suddenly her voice filled the studio, but it wasn't just her voice. Too dark for the campaign. Find someone else. Julian's recorded voice was unmistakable. But Maya's look is perfect for, another voice, Dimitri's. I said find someone else. Our clients don't want to see, that. The recording cut off. The studio was tomb silent. Maya touched her screen again. These sketches are brilliant. Who did them? A woman's voice, Céline Laurent, the legendary designer who'd been Julian's mentor. I did, Julian's voice responded smoothly. Inspired by my recent trip to Morocco. But Julian, Maya's recorded voice, younger, more naive, those are my. Did you say something, Maya? No. Then go get my lunch. The usual place. She had dozens more. The room listened in horror as 3 years of evidence played out, Julian taking credit for others' work, making racist comments, discussing how to manipulate the books to hide money, bragging about destroying careers of anyone who challenged him. But the worst was yet to come. Maya pulled out a manila folder, her hands steady now. 6 months ago, Julian presented a collection he claimed was inspired by his spiritual journey through Africa. The same collection you're all here to preview today. The one that's supposed to launch in 6 hours. She opened the folder, revealing sketches dated 2 years earlier. Her sketches. Every piece, every detail, every innovation, stolen from the portfolio I submitted when I applied here. The portfolio that mysteriously went missing from HR. Julian lunged forward, trying to snatch the folder from Maya's hands. She stepped back smoothly, and he stumbled, his perfect composure finally cracking completely. Those are fake. She's lying. This is defamation. I'll sue you into oblivion. With what money, Julian? Maya's voice remained calm, though her heart was racing. The money you've been embezzling from Maison Eclat? The funds you've been funneling through shell companies in the Caymans? Oh yes, she said, seeing his face drain of color, I know about those too. Amazing what people will tell you when they think you're just the invisible assistant. Vivian Chen stepped forward, her heels clicking on the polished concrete floor. Ms. Thompson, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof beyond these recordings? Maya smiled then, the first real smile she'd allowed herself in 3 years. Mrs. Chen, do you know why I asked everyone to stay? Why I chose today, 6 hours before the show? She walked over to the rack of completed garments, running her hand along a silk dress that shimmered like water. Every single piece in this collection has something special sewn into the lining. Something Julian never bothered to check because he doesn't actually know how to sew. He doesn't know how to drape, or pattern, or construct. He only knows how to steal. She pulled out a small UV flashlight from her bag, the kind used to authenticate currency, and shined it on the dress's inner seam. A QR code glowed purple against the fabric. Scan it, she said, holding the dress toward Marcus from Vogue. Go ahead. Scan any piece. Marcus pulled out his phone, his hands shaking slightly as he scanned the code. His eyes widened as his screen filled with images, Maya's original sketches, dated and notarized, alongside photos of Julian's inspired versions. Design after design, proof after proof, an undeniable digital trail that connected every piece in the collection back to her stolen portfolio. You psychotic, Julian started forward again, but this time Dimitri stepped between them, his 6'4" frame blocking Julian's path. Enough, Dimitri said quietly. We've all had enough. You planned this, Julian whispered, his blue suit now wrinkled, sweat staining the Italian silk. You've been planning this for months. 6 months, Maya confirmed. Since the day you looked me in the eye and told me no one would believe the black assistant over the white fashion director. You were wrong, Julian. They'll believe the truth. Sarah from makeup stepped forward, her voice shaky but determined. She's not the only one. He's been stealing from all of us. My innovative contouring technique that got featured in Allure. He claimed he invented it. Told me I should be grateful he even let me work here. The lighting concept for the fall campaign, Dimitri added, his deep voice carrying across the studio. My concept. He presented it to the board as his vision. One by one, they came forward. The junior designers whose sketches had been refined into Julian's vision. The photographers whose concepts had been stolen. The models who'd been told they were lucky to work with such a visionary, even as he berated them for their weight, their walk, their very existence. The studio filled with voices that had been silenced for too long, each story adding another crack to Julian's carefully constructed facade. But Maya wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone again, checking the time. In 5 hours and 37 minutes, when the show is supposed to start, a website will go live. Every piece of evidence, every recording, every stolen design, every financial document, all of it will be available for the world to see. The Times, the Journal, WWD, they all have reporters standing by. Your spring collection isn't launching today, Julian. Your career is ending. You can't. Julian's voice cracked like a teenager's. The contracts, the NDAs, I'll destroy you. The NDAs are void when criminal activity is involved, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a woman in a severe black suit, flanked by 2 FBI agents. Mr. Beaumont, I'm Agent Sarah Chen with the Financial Crimes Division. We'll need you to come with us. The studio watched in stunned silence as Julian Beaumont, the untouchable fashion director, the industry's golden boy, was led away in handcuffs. He turned back once, his eyes finding Maya, and she saw something she'd never seen in them before: fear. The studio remained frozen for several heartbeats after the FBI agents disappeared with Julian. Then, as if a spell had been broken, everyone began talking at once. Vivian Chen was on her phone with Bergdorf's CEO. Marcus from Vogue was typing furiously on his laptop, his exclusive already forming. Models hugged each other, some crying with relief. The entire ecosystem that had revolved around Julian Beaumont's tyranny was suddenly, miraculously, free. Maya stood in the center of it all, feeling strangely empty. She'd imagined this moment so many times, the vindication, the justice, the freedom. But now that it was here, she felt like a marionette with cut strings, unsure how to move without the weight of his oppression defining her every action. Maya. Dimitri's gentle voice brought her back. What you did, that took incredible courage. She looked up at him, this man who'd been kind to her in small ways, a coffee here, a sympathetic glance there, but who'd never stood up to Julian until today. We all had the same information, she said quietly. I just decided to use it. No, Sarah from makeup joined them, mascara streaking her cheeks. You risked everything. We all knew what he was, but we were too scared. You gave us our voices back. Vivian Chen approached, her expression unreadable. Maya braced herself. Without Julian, without the show, hundreds of jobs were now in jeopardy. The buyers could pull out, the investors could flee, Maison Eclat could crumble entirely. Ms. Thompson, Vivian began formally, then paused. Maya. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I've seen talented people destroyed by men like Julian Beaumont, watched brilliant minds dimmed because they didn't fit the right profile. I've been complicit in my silence. She looked around the studio, taking in the racks of clothes that bore QR codes like hidden truths. But not anymore. Bergdorf Goodman will honor our contracts with Maison Eclat, on one condition. Maya's heart stopped. Which is? That you present the collection. Your collection. Under your name. The studio erupted again, this time in cheers and applause. Maya felt her knees go weak, and Dimitri steadied her with a hand on her elbow. I don't understand. The show is in 5 hours. The programs are printed, the seating charts are done, everything says Julian Beaumont. Then we change them, Marcus interjected, looking up from his laptop. I've already sent word to my editor. The story of the century isn't Julian Beaumont's new collection, it's Maya Thompson's triumph over systemic racism and theft in the fashion industry. Every fashion journalist in the city will want to be here. The models will walk, one of them called out, a Brazilian beauty named Lucia who Julian had reduced to tears just yesterday. We'll all walk for you, Maya. I'll handle makeup, Sarah added, wiping her cheeks. The team's with you. Lighting and photography are yours, Dimitri confirmed. Whatever you need. Maya looked around at these people, her colleagues, her fellow survivors, her unexpected army. For 3 years, she'd felt alone, isolated by Julian's careful campaign to make her feel less than, other than, never enough. But she'd never been alone. They'd all been waiting, hoping, needing someone to go first. There's one problem, she said, her practical mind already racing ahead. The collection, it's my designs, yes, but they're produced in Julian's aesthetic. The minimalism, the cold palette, that's all him. That's not who I am as a designer. Vivian smiled then, the first genuine smile Maya had ever seen from the formidable buyer. Then show us who you are. You have 5 hours. Transform it. Maya felt something ignite in her chest, not revenge, not anger, but pure creative fire. She looked at the racks of clothes, seeing not Julian's sterile vision but the possibilities hidden underneath. Sarah, I need color. All the color you can find. Dimitri, the lighting needs to be warm, alive. And music, she turned to the studio's sound engineer. Do you still have that Afrobeat playlist I made for late nights? Every track, he confirmed with a grin. Then let's get to work. Maya pulled off her blazer, revealing the vibrant red dress beneath, the same dress Julian had once called too loud for the office. We're going to give them a show they'll never forget. Not Julian Beaumont's swan song, but Maya Thompson's rise. The next 5 hours blurred into controlled chaos. Maya moved through the studio like a conductor orchestrating a symphony, her vision finally unleashed after years of suppression. The minimalist white garments that Julian had insisted upon became canvases for transformation. Sarah and her makeup team worked with fabric dyes, creating ombre effects that shifted from snow white to rich jewel tones. The severe silhouettes were deconstructed and rebuilt, adding movement, life, and soul to what had been sterile perfection. More gold on the hem, Maya directed, watching as a junior designer hand-painted metallic accents onto a flowing dress. Let it catch the light like sunrise on water. She moved to another station where models were trying on the reimagined pieces. Lucia, that draping, pull it higher on the left. Yes. See how it creates movement even when you're still? Her phone buzzed constantly, reporters wanting statements, industry insiders who'd heard whispers of the morning's drama, former colleagues offering support. She ignored them all. There would be time for interviews later. Right now, there was only the work, the pure joy of creating without fear, without someone standing over her shoulder telling her she was too much, too bold, too black. Maya. Dimitri called from the lighting booth. Come see this. She jogged over, her red dress swirling around her legs. He'd transformed the stark white runway into something magical, warm amber lights mixed with deep purples and golds, creating an atmosphere that felt like sunset in a place where anything was possible. It's perfect, she breathed. But can you add projections? He grinned, already ahead of her. Watch this. He hit a button, and suddenly the backdrop came alive with images, textile patterns from across Africa, reimagined and modernized, creating a living tapestry behind where the models would walk. Dimitri, I could kiss you. Please don't. My wife would be upset. But he was smiling, and Maya realized this was the first time she'd seen him truly happy in the studio. 3 hours before showtime, Céline Laurent arrived. The legendary designer who'd been Julian's mentor swept into the studio wearing her signature all-black ensemble, her silver hair pulled back in a severe chignon. The room fell silent. Céline's opinion could make or break careers, and everyone knew she'd been Julian's strongest supporter. Ms. Laurent, Maya began, but the older woman held up a hand. Show me, she commanded. Maya nodded to the models, who emerged wearing the first 3 transformed pieces. Where Julian's collection had whispered wealth, Maya's sang joy. The clothes moved like living things, colors shifting with each step, traditional patterns reimagined through contemporary cuts. It was heritage meeting future, restraint meeting celebration, everything fashion could be when it remembered it was supposed to make people feel something. Céline walked slowly around each model, her expression unreadable. She fingered fabrics, examined seams, studied the interplay of color and light. The studio held its breath. Julian called me last week, she said finally, her French accent lending gravity to every word. He was so proud of his collection. Told me it was his masterpiece, his evolution as an artist. She turned to Maya. I've been designing for 50 years. I know stolen work when I see it. I also know fear when I see it. I saw both in Julian, and I said nothing. She moved closer to Maya, and for the first time, Maya saw tears in the legendary designer's eyes. I was you once. Young, talented, full of ideas that threatened the establishment. But I was lucky, I was white, French, the right kind of different. I climbed the ladder and pulled it up behind me instead of extending it down. She touched the transformed dress, where traditional Kent patterns flowed into modern architectural cuts. This is what fashion should be. What I forgot it could be. I'm sorry it took your courage to remind me. The apology hung in the air like incense. Then Céline Laurent did something that would be talked about in fashion circles for years. She took off her signature black jacket and asked, "How can I help?" With the industry's most respected designer working alongside them, the transformation accelerated. Models who'd been booked for Julian's show arrived to find chaos and chose to stay, energized by the creative electricity in the air. Makeup artists from other studios heard what was happening and showed up to volunteer. The story was already spreading through social media, #Maya Thompson rising trending worldwide before the first model had even walked. 1 hour before showtime, Maya stood before the completed collection. 25 pieces that told a story, her story, but also the story of everyone who'd been told they were too different, too much, not enough. Clothes that celebrated rather than concealed, that honored tradition while embracing innovation. Places. Dimitri called. Doors open in 30 minutes. Maya felt panic flutter in her chest. In the adrenaline of creation, she'd forgotten one crucial detail: she had nothing to wear. The red dress that had felt like armor this morning now seemed wrong for the moment she was about to face. Maya. Sarah appeared at her elbow, holding a garment bag. "We made something for you." Inside was a dress that took her breath away. They'd taken one of her own designs, the very first sketch from her stolen portfolio, and brought it to life. Deep purple silk that shifted to gold in the light, with subtle patterns that told stories in thread and beads. It was professional but unapologetic, elegant but unmistakably hers. "How did you?" "We've been working on it all day," Lucia explained, appearing with the other models. "Taking turns between our own fittings. You gave us our voices back. This is our thank you." Maya blinked back tears as they helped her into the dress. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting 3 years to exist. In the mirror, she saw not the assistant who'd been diminished and dismissed, but the designer she'd always been inside. The doors opened. The fashion world poured in, expecting Julian Beaumont's latest minimalist meditation and finding instead a revolution in color and joy. The front row filled with editors, buyers, and influencers, their phones already out, documenting everything. In the back, Maya spotted the FBI agent who'd arrested Julian that morning, apparently curious to see what would rise from the ashes of what she'd helped destroy. Marcus from Vogue caught her eye and mouthed, "History in the making." Maya took her place at the side of the runway, not hidden in the back as she'd always been, but visible, present, claimed. The lights dimmed. The music began, not the classical pieces Julian favored, but Afrobeat that made the very air pulse with life. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vivian Chen's voice rang out, having volunteered to announce. Maison Eclat presents Truth in Beauty, the Maya Thompson collection. The first model stepped out, and the audience gasped. Where they'd expected whispers, they got songs. Where they'd expected restraint, they got celebration. Each piece told a story of transformation, of finding beauty in authenticity, of the power that comes from refusing to be silenced. But it was the finale that brought the house down. All 25 models walked together, the clothes creating a river of color and movement. Then they stopped, turned, and began to clap. The audience realized they weren't applauding the clothes or themselves, they were applauding Maya. "Speech," someone called out. Then others joined in. "Speech! Speech!" Maya stepped onto the runway, her purple gold dress catching the lights like armor made of dreams. The applause was deafening, but she waited, letting the moment settle. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear and strong. 3 years ago, I came to Maison Eclat with a portfolio full of dreams and a heart full of hope. What I found was a system designed to crush both. Julian Beaumont didn't just steal my designs, he tried to steal my voice, my identity, my belief that fashion could be a force for inclusion and joy. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. But here's what he never understood: you can't steal someone's truth. You can bury it, silence it, lock it away, but truth has a way of finding the light. She gestured to the models behind her, to the team in the wings, to everyone who'd made this impossible day possible. This collection isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who's been told they don't belong, everyone who's had their ideas stolen and their contributions erased. Today, we don't just reclaim our designs, we reclaim our right to exist fully and boldly in spaces that were never built for us. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Orders poured in before the models had even left the runway. By the time Maya finally made it backstage, her phone had hundreds of messages, job offers, collaboration requests, interview invitations. The fashion world that had ignored her for 3 years suddenly couldn't get enough. But it was a single text that made her smile. From her mother: "Saw the news. Your grandmother would be so proud. You wore your truth like she taught you." As the studio emptied and the lights dimmed, Maya stood in a space where her professional life had begun and nearly ended. Tomorrow, there would be lawyers and contracts and decisions about Maison Eclat's future. There would be interviews and photo shoots and the overwhelming reality of overnight success that was actually 3 years in the making. But tonight, she simply stood in her purple gold dress, surrounded by the clothes that told her story, and felt the particular joy that comes from speaking truth in a world that would prefer your silence. The scissors Julian had thrown still stuck out of the mood board, but they no longer looked like weapons. They looked like markers, showing exactly where one story ended and another began. Céline Laurent found her there an hour later, after everyone else had gone. "So," the legendary designer said, "what will you do now?" Maya considered the question, running her hand over one of the transformed garments. "I'm going to build something new. A house that celebrates rather than tolerates. Where young designers don't have to choose between their authenticity and their ambitions." "You'll need investors," Céline said. "Partners. Guidance." "I'll need truth-tellers," Maya corrected gently. "People who understand that fashion's future isn't an exclusion, it's in opening every door we were told was closed to us." Céline smiled, and for the first time, she looked her age, not with weariness, but with the wisdom that comes from recognizing a changing of the guard. "Then you'll need this." She pulled out a card, not a business card, but a black credit card. "My personal investment account. Whatever you need to build what fashion should have been all along." Maya stared at the card, understanding the magnitude of what was being offered. Not just money, but legitimacy, connection, the keys to kingdoms she'd only dreamed of entering. "There are no strings," Céline continued. "Except one: you must promise to do for others what no one did for you. Extend the ladder. Open the doors. Make space at the table." "I promise," Maya said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. As she finally left the studio, the New York night embraced her with its usual chaos and possibility. But something had shifted. The city looked different when you walked through it as yourself, fully and unapologetically. The girl who'd entered Maison Eclat 3 years ago would have taken the subway, kept her head down, tried to disappear. The woman who emerged hailed a taxi, gave her address in a clear voice, and watched the city lights blur past like a promise of everything still to come. Her phone buzzed with a news alert: "Fashion revolution, assistant exposes industry titan, transforms collection in 5 hours." But Maya Thompson wasn't reading headlines. She was already sketching, her mind full of new designs, new possibilities, new ways to ensure that no one would ever again have to choose between their dreams and their dignity. The red dress she'd worn that morning as armor had been replaced by purple gold silk that felt like wings. And for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't just surviving in fashion's hostile landscape. She was soaring above it, rewriting the rules as she flew.